I think I found one of the best builds in the game. I call it Bomberman because it's all about the amazing golden flame ability, which if you still have it on level 1, you can spam on the same enemy and then easily take them out. But don't worry, if you already have the ability on rank 2, it's still amazing and might even be better to very easily take out multiple enemies. Yes, most of the footage that you will see in this video is on the very hard difficulty with the nightmare enemy scaling, and I just very easily take care of everyone. It's really satisfying to play as. I will tell you how to make this build yourself. If you want to see more of these build videos, then totally leave a like on the video to show your support. And let's go. Giveaway for 2,300 Helix credits, of course, in the pinned comment. You have to be a subscriber of the channel before you enter as well, and good luck. Maybe you already guessed it, but this build is all about the amazing Paladin armor you can find in gear chest in the Siege of Paris DLC. And I will link to my video with the exact locations and other tips in the video description. I fully upgraded the armor set, put some defensive runes on it, mostly armor and some melee and ranged resistance. And I'm rocking the increased speed when surrounded by more than 2 enemies, major armor rune on the chest. But it's of course mostly about the set bonus from the Paladin armor, 70% more adrenaline per hit. Which means you can get 1 adrenaline bar by hitting an enemy 2 times when dual wielding 2 one-handed swords. So yeah, then you can basically spam this golden flame bomb ability. Every fight I start by putting this ability on an enemy and then I follow up with heavy hits. The bomb goes off, the enemy falls on the ground, and then they die before you know it. So this tactic is already great in many situations, but maybe you already see it. I have both poison and fire damage onto a target, which very easily nukes them thanks to the huge damage over time. And that's where the weapon major runes come in. I use the Shoyo's one-handed sword, also known as the Rainbow Joyce, by the way. And with this, of course, you get poison on your weapon after 5 heavy hits. So I put the major rune heavy hits on fallen enemies, poison them on this blade, like we're spamming heavy hits anyways, and enemies are on the ground all the time thanks to the golden flame bomb. So you do heavy hits on fallen enemies all the time, which adds more poison to them. But the bomb also does fire damage. And to enhance that even more, I have the heavy hits set fallen enemies on fire major rune on the Durandal sword. So this means when I'm doing heavy hits on fallen enemies, I do both poison and fire damage, which is insane, and also why the enemies die so fast when they lie helplessly on the ground. I of course made a weapon video going over the swords and how you can get them, which I will also link to in the video description, by the way. And I do get that you might not have these major runes, but in the Paris DLC, it's actually a bit easier to get them. Merchants in Francia are namely not linked, meaning that they have their own inventory, as Joyce also explained regarding the tattoos you can get in the expansion in our previous all items video. So this means that every merchant in Francia has their own major rune for sale, and that buying one means that other merchants in Francia still have their own major rune. So it's totally worth it to fast travel to the different towns and check the merchants often. They should reset after leveling up, by the way, or after like an hour or 45 minutes of playtime. Back to the Bomberman, because there are more interesting things about this build. I think it's obvious why I use the Zwoyes for the poison damage. I, by the way, use poison build-up runes on this weapon, so enemies get poisoned faster. And the reason why I have the Durandal as my offhand is for the extra crit chance. You can, by the way, also use the ringed sword. It's kind of up to you. I namely also use the Viper bow with crit chance on hit, which also works on melee hits. So with both the perk from the Durandal and from the Viper bow fully active, I reach almost 150 crit chance, which like a 50% crit chance, a bit less. So that's great in combination with the restore a low amount of health for a critical hit, a major rune, which I have on the Viper bow, and this 10% health. So yeah, I can get some health back while dealing damage as well. Again, I totally prefer the rank 1 version of the Golden Flame ability because it's faster and it also lets you stack multiple bombs onto one enemy, which is super satisfying and especially nice against enemies with a ton of health. So as I said in other videos, I would not recommend that you get the second book. You find one, by the way, over here in an underground area where you also have to go to for the hidden mission. You have to find a key here for the Assassin Bureau. and location 2 is in this raiding area. So you likely don't have this one yet. Don't get it. Although, as said in the intro, don't worry, it's still a really great tactic if you have the rank 2 version of this ability. It might actually be better for taking out groups of enemies, as you will be throwing one enemy to others, which let them all fall on the ground, so you can perform the heavy hits on fallen enemies and deal a lot of poison and fire damage. I still hope Ubisoft adds a feature so we can revert back to older ability levels, so we can like switch between them. They should be aware that we want it, so I really hope they add it in the future. There are also other abilities that I like to use with this build, by the way, and that can also get the enemy on the ground. For example, the dive of the Valkyries is cool to jump from enemy to enemy, and this also pushes them on the ground. I also love to spam the Vengeance of Thor, of course. This lets you spin the sword around so you can very easily poison them when you got poison on the blade, or when fighting smaller enemies, they will also fall after this ability, so they can also do the heavy hits. This is like faster than doing the bomb all the time. A really cool move is to put a bomb on a weaker enemy and then use Vengeance of Thor, so then they die from the blast of the explosion that of course happens a few seconds later. The only downside is that the tactic doesn't really work on animals and other creatures that cannot fall down, and also the cavalry enemies in the Siege of Paris are still quite annoying even with this build, although they still cannot escape the bombs, of course. This was a very satisfying kill. Either way, apart from these enemies, you can nuke everything on the very hard difficulty with Nightmare enemy scaling. It's also amazing against Drangir or Zealots if you still got them in the world. Like, they will be unable to do anything back. I also love how the bomb ability just interrupts some of the abilities that they like to do and stuns them instead. There are overall not a lot of ways to enhance your damage in Valhalla, but this was the best that I was able to do right now. It's overall awesome that builds are kind of possible now in Valhalla and also needed if you want to play on the Nightmare difficulty. Like the Siege of Paris also added some cool new possibilities and also created interesting options for things we already had in the game, like crit chance, that I want to make a build around very soon too. I saw also some people talk about the sights and how they don't like the damage or speed, so something for that will be coming as well. Just way more build videos are on the way. But I'm also curious if you got fun ways to play. Let me know via the input@JorRaptor.com email address, or of course in the comments under this video. Subscribe for way more Valhalla videos. I also got way more info from my interview with Jose. So a lot of interesting content is coming your way. A like on the video would really help me out, and totally check out my previous video I also put up today about the sights in Valhalla and some really cool moves that you can do with them. You can watch it by clicking on the screen. For now, I will speak to you next time, and goodbye.